The thing that broke you is the same thing that makes you capable of healing people that no one else can reach. And until you understand that completely, not intellectually, not as a comforting idea, but as the operational truth of who you actually are, you will keep treating your greatest power as your deepest wound. You are not supposed to survive what you survived. Not in the statistical odds-based sense of people who go through what you went through and emerge with the specific combination of depth, perception, and unshakable interior knowing that you carry. Most people who experience what you experienced either shut down, closing off the parts of themselves that got hurt and building walls so complete they eventually forget there was anything on the other side, or they stay in it, perpetually, organized around the wound, defined by the damage, living inside the story of what was done to them rather than inside the extraordinary person that surviving it produced. You did neither. Or you tried to do both and failed at them, which in this context is the same as succeeding. Because you are here, still feeling, still open enough to be affected by what you read, still carrying the specific, almost painful sensitivity of someone whose nervous system was calibrated by difficulty into an instrument of extraordinary precision. That sensitivity is not your curse, it is your credential. The trauma-born empath loner is the most powerful healer available because they are the only one who has actually been where the people they heal are currently living, not theoretically, not through study or empathy training or the intellectual understanding of someone who knows about pain without having been shaped by it. They have been there, in the specific wordless, apparently bottomless darkness of genuine suffering. And they came back, carrying not just their own recovery but a map. You are carrying a map that most people do not know you have, and the people who need it. Most will only accept it from someone whose hands show the evidence of having drawn it themselves. Your wounds are not the obstacle to your purpose. They are the qualification for it, and it is long past time you understood the difference. The trauma did not just hurt you. It built something in you that comfort never could have produced. This is not a feel-good reframe. This is the specific, observable, entirely non-mystical description of what sustained difficulty navigated honestly, rather than bypassed or suppressed, actually does to human consciousness. It develops it, in directions, and to depths that the comfortable life, however genuinely pleasant, simply does not require, and therefore does not produce. The child who grows up in safety and consistent warmth develops the social skills, the emotional security, the basic trust in the world's reliability that makes ordinary life navigable. These are genuine gifts, but they do not develop the specific perceptual capacity that the child who grew up having to read the emotional temperature of every room before deciding whether it was safe, who learned to detect danger in the micro-expressions that preceded it, to feel the shift in energy before it became behavior, to process social information at a speed and depth that most people's systems never needed to develop, carries as the automatic, involuntary, always operating consequence of having been forged in difficulty. Your nervous system was trained by your history into an extraordinary instrument, one that perceives beneath the surface of things with a consistency and a precision that most people who have not lived what you lived simply do not have access to. You feel what is happening in a room before it becomes visible. You know things about people before they have told you, before they have even fully acknowledged those things to themselves. You sense the wound beneath the behavior, the fear beneath the anger, the desperate reaching beneath the defensive withdrawal. You have this not despite your trauma, because of it. Because the specific environment your development occurred and required you to develop these capacities in order to navigate it safely. And what was developed in service of survival did not disappear when the survival became less urgent. It remains, fully intact, now available not for the management of danger, but for the genuine, extraordinary service of people who are currently where you once were. Here is the first brutal truth. What you carry as your most private burden, the sensitivity, the hypervigilance, the inability to stop feeling what is happening around you, is the exact quality that makes you capable of reaching people that conventionally trained helpers cannot. Because those people, the ones in this specific wordless, apparently bottomless darkness that you once inhabited, can feel the difference between someone who understands pain intellectually and someone who understands it somatically. They can feel it in your presence, in the specific quality of your stillness with their difficulty, In the absence of the flinching, the rushing toward resolution, the subtle discomfort that most people cannot help expressing when genuine darkness exceeds the depths they have personally navigated, you do not flinch. Because you have been there. And your not flinching is the most healing thing available to someone who has been abandoned by people who could not hold the darkness with them. The second thing trauma produced is the specific, hard-won, cannot be faked quality of genuine compassion, not the performed compassion of someone who has learned the right things to say. The specific, interior, comes from knowing compassion of someone who has felt what the other person is feeling, not a version of it, not something similar, but the actual texture of that specific kind of pain and survived it, and is present now on the other side of survival, as living proof that the other side exists. That proof is not communicable through words. It is communicated through presence, through the specific quality of being with someone in their darkness without urgency, without the need to make it smaller or resolve it faster, or convert it into something more manageable before it has been fully felt. Through the ability to sit inside genuine suffering, another person's genuine suffering, and not need it to be over yet because you know, from the inside, that the process has a pace that cannot be rushed without cost. Most helpers want to help you out of the darkness. The trauma-born empath healer knows how to be with you in it, until you are ready to find the way out yourself. That difference is everything. The trauma-born empath loner, not just the empath, the loner. And the loner part is not incidental to the power. It is integral to it. The loner aspect of this configuration is almost universally misread by the person carrying it, by the people around them, by a culture that consistently interprets the preference for solitude as social failure, rather than as the deliberate, entirely functional, entirely necessary management of a system that processes the world at a depth that requires significant recovery time to sustain. The trauma-born empath loner is not antisocial. They have not withdrawn from genuine connection because they are incapable of it or afraid of it. They have developed often through painful trial and error rather than through deliberate choice for our understanding that their extraordinary capacity for genuine presence with other people requires genuine solitude to regenerate, that the depth of processing their system performs in every significant interaction requires the specific, protected, genuinely inhabited quiet of their own company to complete before it can be available again at full capacity. This is not weakness. This is the responsible management of a high-capacity instrument. The loner who protects their solitude is not refusing connection. They are maintaining the conditions under which the deepest and most genuine connection they are capable of, the kind that actually heals people, rather than simply accompanying them, can occur. Here is the second brutal truth. The trauma-born empath who does not protect their solitude does not become more available. They become less. They become the depleted, overwhelmed, increasingly reactive version of themselves, the version that is still carrying everyone else's pain alongside their own unprocessed material, still absorbing without releasing, still giving from a reservoir that has not been replenished. That version cannot heal anyone, because healing requires a specific quality of grounded, centered, fully present attention that only a restored system can provide. The loner aspect is also what produces the depth of interior development that makes the healing capacity extraordinary rather than ordinary. The hours spent alone, not escaping the interior but genuinely inhabiting it, examining it, following the threads of self-knowledge into territories that most people never visit, because the social world provides continuous distraction from the need to those hours produce something that the constantly externally engaged person simply does not develop. The specific, settled, grounded knowing of your own interior. The ability to be with what is difficult in yourself, the grief, the anger, the unresolved material from the history that produced you without requiring it to be immediately resolved, immediately expressed, immediately witnessed by someone else to be legitimately real. That capacity to be fully present with genuine difficulty without urgency about its resolution is precisely what makes the trauma-born empath loner capable of being with other people's genuine difficulty without urgency. The interior practice of sitting with your own darkness is the training for sitting with someone else's. The solitude is not isolation. It is the laboratory in which the most important development of the healing capacity occurs. And the loner who has learned to inhabit it fully, who has developed the rich, genuinely engaging interior life, that makes genuine solitude nourishing rather than merely empty, is not someone who has given up on connection. They are someone who has developed the rarest form of it, the kind that does not require constant company to sustain, because it is rooted in the deepest possible connection with themselves. There are things you can do in the healing of another human being that no amount of formal training, no accumulation of credentials, no well-intentioned therapist or counselor or life coach who has not been where you have been can replicate. Not because training and credentials are worthless, they are not, but because the specific gifts you carry are not produced by training. They are produced by living. The first gift is recognition, the capacity to recognize what someone is experiencing specifically, accurately, without needing them to fully articulate it because you have been inside that specific experience yourself. When someone is in a particular kind of darkness, the most healing thing available to them is not analysis or technique or the right intervention at the right moment. It is being recognized. Having someone present who can look at them at the specific way they are holding their body, the specific quality of their silence, the specific gap between what they are saying and what their face is expressing, and communicate, without words if necessary. I know what this is. I have been here. You are not alone in this, and you are not as lost as it feels. That recognition is only available from someone who has been there. The person who has read extensively about this kind of darkness can offer information about it. The person who has inhabited it can offer recognition of it. And for the person currently inside it, the difference between those two offerings is the difference between feeling studied and feeling understood. The second gift is authenticity, the specific, unperformable quality of someone who has nothing to prove about their capacity to handle darkness, because the darkness has already been handled by them, at real cost, without the option of retreat. The trauma-born empath loner does not approach another person's suffering with the subtle anxiety of someone who is worried about saying the wrong thing or not being sufficient to the difficulty, or being affected more than a professional helper should be. They approach it with the specific, quiet, entirely settled groundedness of someone who knows this territory, knows it from the inside, and is not frightened by it. That absence of fear is immediately felt by the person being helped. And it is one of the most healing things available because the person in the darkness is often surrounded by people whose discomfort with that darkness is palpable beneath their kind intentions, who need the person to get better soon, not primarily for the person's sake, but because the darkness is difficult to witness, and the witness's relief is organized around resolution rather than around genuine accompaniment. The trauma-born empath loner does not need the person to get better on a timeline that relieves the witness. They can stay. They can be present with whatever pace the genuine process requires. And that availability, the patient, non-urgent, genuinely here quality of their presence is itself the most powerful healing agent available. The third gift is the map, the specific, detailed, entirely personal knowledge of what it actually takes to move through this kind of difficulty. Not the generic, applies to everyone advice of someone who knows the territory from the outside. The specific, grounded, this is what worked and this is what did not knowledge of someone who made the journey themselves. Who knows which false exits lead back to the beginning? Who knows which moments of apparent improvement are genuine and which are temporary? Who knows the specific, difficult, non-negotiable step that most people try to bypass and cannot bypass without eventually returning to it? Who knows from the inside what the other side actually feels like and can describe it with enough specificity that the person currently doubting it exists can begin to believe in it? That map is your credential. And it was earned at a price that most people will never have to pay, which means it is available from very few people and needed by many. Stop treating it as your private burden. Start offering it as the extraordinary gift it actually is. So here is what this understanding demands of you. Not the comfortable recognition of your own extraordinary capacity from a reflective, non-demanding distance. Something more specific, something that requires something real from you right now. Stop hiding what you are. Not in the dramatic public declaration sense, in the specific, daily, immediate sense of the countless moments in which you have the capacity to genuinely help someone, and you pull back because the wound feels too visible, because the history feels too heavy, because the idea of being someone whose healing capacity comes from having been broken feels like an exposure of something that should remain private, rather than an offering of something that is genuinely needed. Every time you pull back from offering what you actually carry, every time you defer to the person with the credential rather than the person with the genuine experience, every time you minimize what you know because you learned it in the dark rather than in a classroom, someone who could have been reached by your specific combination of living experience and extraordinary perception goes unreached. By you specifically, who was the one who could have gotten through. That is not a small cost. And the rationalizations that make the pulling back feel like humility rather than what? It often actually is fear are costing you and the people who need you. Start today with one person, the one who is currently where you once were, the one whose darkness you recognize because you have been inside it, the one who needs not the right words or the right technique but the specific, unperformable, comes only from living quality of genuine recognition, from someone who has been there and came back. Offer what you actually have, not the polished version, not the version with the credentials attached, the real version, the one that was built in the dark through actual suffering, by someone who refused to be entirely destroyed by it and emerged carrying something that the comfortable life could not have produced. Your wounds are your wisdom. Your history is your qualification. Your extraordinary sensitivity, the one that was calibrated by difficulty into the precise instrument you now carry, is not a liability you have been managing. It is the most powerful healing tool available. But it only works when you stop treating it as something to be hidden and start offering it as what it actually is. The world does not need more people who understand pain from the outside. It needs people who know it from the inside, who can sit in the darkness with someone without needing it to be over yet, who carry a map drawn from genuine experience and offer it without apology. That person is you, has always been you. The only question left is whether you are willing to stop pretending it is not. Stop hiding, start healing. The people who need specifically what you carry are already waiting, and only you can give it to them.